Hello friends and fellow artists, Miss Katie here. Today I'm going to show you how to make a sculpture using chipboard that you find in the recycling. It's going to be the material that cereal boxes and granola bar boxes, things like that come in. So let's take a look at the materials you're going to need and we'll get started on that. So the things that you'll need will be chipboard from the recycling. So anything that is like a box probably that you get food or snacks in, or toys possibly. So check out the recycling and see what you can find in there. You'll need some colored paper. You might use some scraps of colored paper. You'll need some type of adhesive, glue or glue stick. You'll need some sharp scissors. You might need a pencil. You might need a ruler. You might want one, or a straight edge. And you'll also want some scrappy paper to work on with your glue stick, as well as some wax paper. And I'll show you why you might want to use that here in a bit. So I've cut all these pieces down to smaller sizes. Now, this is basically the goal. We're going to make these into geometric kind of cut shapes, and then we're going to figure out how to attach them together to make a sculpture. But before we do that, let's prepare them and make them look a little nicer by covering one side with paper. So we can do this one of two ways. We want to conserve as much of the paper as possible. We don't want to be gluing things down and sticking them in the middle of our paper and waste all this paper. So I'm using this scrappy paper so that I can get glue all the way off the edge like this. Extra, extra, extra glue. Now, if you don't have a glue stick, or your glue stick seems to be a little weak, go ahead and use tacky glue, and I'll show you how to spread that on here in a sec. So I can put it on like this. Hopefully that'll hold, but I think the trick is going to be, I'm just going to trim a little off here. The trick is going to be pressing it with a book, keeping it nice and flat while it's drying. If you have extra glue on the outside, it's going to ruin your book. It's going to be messy. So I would take a piece of wax paper and place it down like this first before I press it. If you don't have wax paper, you could do it with paper. At least that would be better, or it might stick to the paper, but you could also use something like plastic wrapping from packaging. I'm thinking something like that, or plastic bags. Be creative and see what you can find so you don't ruin your books. I'm just going to keep covering these pieces, trimming off the extra for now. So if you want to use tacky glue instead, I'm going to show you about how much I think is a good amount to put on. I love this purple piece here. Let's look at this. I take it, and while it's like, press the tip to the board like this and swirl it in tiny circles like this and get those edges exceptionally well. And then you can put a little bit in the middle, but those corners and edges are what's going to really matter. And then I always lay my tacky glue, if I can think about it, down on the side, because it's so heavy. It doesn't usually drip out, but it certainly makes it easier for the next time I want to use it. Also, when I'm setting this under the book, I want to put the side that might have glue on it face down, so I have a nice clean side underneath here. You might think about also repeating some colors in your paper. you know, maybe use just a few colors, not every single color, or maybe you use every single color. It's a rainbow situation. I think it's going to be really cool. I'm going to do a few with the tacky glue and see if that holds more. Okay, I'm just going to keep doing this for a while, and then I'll check back in with you guys and see what else we can do. So I've been pressing these for a bit. Let's have a look and see how they're setting up. Yeah, they seem really flat. I mean, I've been pressing them for probably 10 minutes or so. They're not totally dry, but I think they're ready to use for our sculpture. So I'm going to take all of them out, and then let's have a look at how we can cut them down. So you're probably not going to use all of your pieces, but it's going to be nice if you have a few to play around with. Maybe you can make more than one. I'm going to start by cutting them down to simple shapes. A shape that looks like this is not going to be easy to cut. I would recommend on your first one to do squares, rectangles, triangles, or any kind of polygram, because this is going to be a little bit hard to cut both pieces. And you can either just trim off what you have if you already have your pieces cut down to what you wanted them to look like in the first place, or you can cut through both layers if you have a sharp enough pair of scissors. So I'm going to cut through both layers here and show you. If you cut through both layers like this, then your pieces will be very smooth on the edges. Okay, so you're going to trim them up into interesting pieces to use for your sculpture. And you may just start like trimming them down a little bit, and then as you're working, you can always go back and cut them into something else. Like this one, I want it to look like not mochi anymore, so I might trim this edge like this, and then maybe I would just cut this strip down. And now it looks like a scalloped piece. Kind of cool. Who knows? Who knows if I'm going to use this piece? Maybe I'll do the same here, and then I'll have this striped piece in the middle. Yeah, it's kind of cool. So I have these strips. These might be tricky to use. We'll have to kind of look at how to use a piece like this, but I definitely want to have different shapes and bigger pieces. I don't want to have all small pieces. So something like this, maybe I'll just kind of leave as this piece, as a kind of rectangle piece. And then, you know, maybe I'll have some curved pieces here. This one kind of looks like it should have been curved. Maybe I'll just kind of cut all this off. I personally am probably not going to use a lot of pictures in mine. as you can see, I have all of my pieces pretty much cut down. And as I was doing this, I was thinking, you know what? You could even leave some trim and have a little bit of a border. So I'm looking at these thinking, oh, these really cool mochi pieces are nice, but do they really go with this? Maybe not. So I might pass on those and use them for something else. But look at your pieces and make sure you have some big pieces and some small pieces. As we build our sculpture, we want this to be able to stand up without falling over. So you're not going to be able to do this by putting a lot of little tiny pieces all at the bottom going up. We want to start with something heavier at the bottom. So this piece, for example, this might make a good start to my base. Now, how am I going to make this stand up without falling over? Well, I think it's going to take a couple of pieces, maybe put together like this somehow. Okay, so how could we do that? Well, let's try this. Let's just see if this will work. I'm going to make a cut partway up here and see about how big it's going to be. And then it looks like I'm going to need to make it longer. So this is going to be like a little slot for me to stick my pieces in. So I could make it longer and have it touching the table flush, or I could find a way to rest it this way, or still, but I think I will go ahead and make this longer. So maybe I would want to take my pencil and just mark how long to cut this. And if your chipboard is a little bit thick, you may want to just trim just a little extra out of there. I don't know if we're really going to need to do this, but just to make a little extra room. See how you can see through there now? Let's see if that helps. There we go. And we have our first slot. Now, this is not going to, this looks like a little teeter-tottery. So we may want to go through and glue it in place. Actually, that's not too bad. Okay, so that works pretty good. But as we're doing this, we may want to run a line of tacky glue on there or regular glue if that's what you have. Okay, so there's our first piece. Let's look at how we can build out on this and, you know, do some other things. As I'm doing this too, maybe I want to cut a corner off or, you know, do some other cool things like that. So I'm going to put this piece on, maybe on here now, this little rainbow flag. So I didn't cut it very straight. That would probably help to cut it a little bit straight. I do think if you remove just a little sliver like this, it's, oops, and I tore it. Whoops, okay, that wasn't good. So be careful when you're doing this, but if you remove just a little sliver, I think it's going to fit together a little bit better. Just a little sliver. Now, if you remove too much, it's going to be quickly way too big, and it's not going to even hold at all. So now this piece is blue and this piece is blue, so I'm going to look for another one of my flags. Yeah, let's go for this turquoise one. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to keep working on this, and this feels really white here. I'm going to add some more color in here, I think. And in all honesty, guys, you may need to start gluing these as you go along. I'm thinking tacky glue would be good, but also if you can operate it, hot glue. Hot glue is going to be fast. So I think I'm going to plug in my hot glue gun and kind of glue this as I go along. So really play around with where things are gonna go. One advantage you would have to not gluing it until the end would be that you can move things around. But if it starts to get to a point where it's just too hard to manage and things are just falling apart or twisting up, then stick a little glue in there and just work with what you're doing. I think it's starting to come together. I'm also noticing that when I make these little slits, if I make them kind of more like a triangle, when I'm taking off some and making it like a little bit of a wedge, I think it holds it tight in the middle. It's a little bit better. It holds it a little bit tight in the middle. And then this one maybe needs a little bit more removed. We'll see. So it's not like super wide the whole way down. I don't know if you can see that. I think that's working. And maybe some of them you want to turn, you know? Like I feel like this one would be kind of cool at an angle. I'm gonna start to hot glue some of this. Just gonna run the smallest ever bit down like one line, I think. And then make sure it's straight, exactly how I want it as I'm gluing it. You could even take one of your scraps and wipe a little extra off if you do it in time. Oh, that was not in the right spot. See? Oh, that's okay. That's okay. That's where my pink one went. Let's try that again. I think actually gluing it underneath would probably be great too, because you're not going to see as much. So if you can do that, I would try for the glue underneath your sculpture. As you can see, I'm only doing on one of the 4 places I could be doing it for now. If it still feels a little unstable, I'll put some more on there later. This is already feeling so much more stable. Tacky glue will absolutely do the trick. Regular glue maybe won't be as fast. That's why I'm going with this glue. It's just going to be a bit faster. Okay, so this is starting to feel more stable. I'm going to turn it a lot and check all the sides. This side, this white side, I thought I would like this white side, but man, it's feeling, whoa, cat fight. It's feeling very plain. So I'm gonna look at, I don't even remember where this piece went. Where did I have this piece? I think it was at the tippy top, right? So I'm gonna keep looking at figuring out how I can make this white side look a little less plain. I'm back, and here is my finished sculpture. Make sure that when you're building this that you consider what it looks like from all angles. Also, you're going to want to make sure that it sits sturdy on a surface. So I hope you have a lot of fun with this project. I am very much looking forward to our next Zoom lesson to see what you all come up with. Until then,